Enough electoral votes, more than 270, more than enough to become the 44th President of the United States. He will be the first African-American President of the United States.
I've been broke all my life, but I kept hope all them nights. You see business in my city? Yeah, they closed all them twice. I was just riding down Salem, all them damn potholes I can't drive. I know y'all can fix it faster, but I know y'all won't try. Don't nobody care about us, and that's why I don't vote. Voted for Obama back in 2012, I remember that's when I had hope. He was saying, yes, we can, and everybody got less food stamps. And when I turned 21, I was still broke, I'd never vote again. I don't think I ever had a president make my life better. Did it all on my own, ain't no politician ever do a nice gesture. I don't even know the mayor's name, I ain't never seen her one time ever. Tell me how she gonna help the city. What I'm supposed to do, write letters? What I'm supposed to do, blame Trump? He ain't never really gave a ain't nobody raised minimum wage. None of these jobs pay enough. I think they just wanna keep us broke, cause they ain't putting nothing in place for us. This how all my people feel, but we gotta learn. We complained enough, let me change it up. Everything I just said, everybody I know think the same way. See, they don't wanna see us vote, and we never do, so we see the same thing. But all our votes really do count, and they'll never really let it show. So now I'm finna break it down, cause if I don't, you would probably never know. First thing first, you know back in middle school when they taught us, it was 3 branches of the government. We forgot it when we got older. It's the judicial, the legislative, and executive. But all we know is the executive. That's the mayor, or the governor, and the president. Now none of them 3 people make no laws, they just be checking them. The laws come to their desk and all they do is say no or yes to it. So when the news station tried to tell us that Barack Obama couldn't put us on, we was all salty at Obama when it was the Congress members all along. We gotta focus on the legislative branch, yeah, they the ones that make the laws. Yeah, they the ones write how much food stamp money you get on the card. But when people that wanted to help us wanted the job, I know they probably lost. Cause we ain't even know their name, we ain't know their face, we ain't know it all. So the Congress or the State House, that's legislative, they make laws. So what we want from the president is what they do, okay y'all? See, they election every 2 years, but we don't ever even go to those. The Congress, they can raise minimum wage, but we ain't even really know it though. So you know how back in 08, when we all voted for Obama, we was all supposed to go back in 2010 and vote for the Congress. Cause they the ones make child support laws, they the ones choose if your kids at school get to eat steak or corn dogs. The State House make the court costs. So if the country failed, then you can't say it's them, it's your fault. Cause y'all ain't know to vote for Congress members that was for y'all. And they don't gotta leave after 4 years, and we just let them sit. See, they don't wanna tell you this, they want you to focus on the president. Now the 3rd branch is the judicial, that's judges. They the reason why John Crawford and Trayvon ain't had justice. So when Meek Mill got locked up just for popping willies, we blame the judge and not the city when they let her get voted in, cause they ain't know who to vote against. Imagine life on the other side. Roads better, schools better, everybody get their license back, grocery store food better, custody of your kids back, homeless people get new shelters. If we gon' fix the U.S., we gotta start with them 2 letters, me and you. Somebody told us that the government wanna keep us broke, but the only reason why those people in the government is cause we ain't vote. And I ain't talking about the president, I'm talking about the ones we ain't know. See, they was gonna try to keep it low, but it's gonna hurt them when they see the pros.
Every time you stay home, someone is making a decision about you, making decisions about the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food your kids eat, and how much money you bring home every 2 weeks. So every time you sit out an election, every time you don't show up because you think it doesn't matter, someone else is happy that you didn't show up, so they can make that decision for you. Vote.
Thank you for tuning in Voice of Reason Boston. My name is Tamisha Civil, your host. We have our special guest, Jared Rose. Jared was running for state senate in the 6th Norfolk district, Jared?
No, Norfolk, Bristol, Plymouth.
Exactly. Okay. So, but you were still kind of in my district. And
yeah,
also
we overlap.
We overlap. So we have Jared today. We're going to learn a little bit more about Jared and how it was campaigning during COVID-19. I know it's been a difficult time for everyone, and we're gonna learn about what are some of your experiences and how it's important to continue to fight for the next generation and continue to have conversations that will help people to understand the importance of voting and the importance of why people choose to run for office, such as yourself. So Jared, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, how are you doing?
Great. So thank you very much for having me, Tamisha. Like I said, my name is Jared Rose. Up until a few weeks ago, I was a candidate for state senate for Norfolk, Bristol, Plymouth district, which stretches from Milton in the north to West and East Bridgewater in the south. I am currently a realtor, a green certified realtor, former state senate aide. I have a 7-week-old baby at home. I live here in Stoughton, only about 2 blocks away from Tamisha. And right now, mostly just trying to promote my business and get more sleep.
Yes, and congratulations, by the way, as being a new father. It's a blessing within itself. So I just wanted to let you know, congratulations, even if you came up short, but you won a big prize, which was your newborn baby. And tell me what prompted you to decide to run for state senate?
Well, I was very dissatisfied with how this district was being represented. And, it kind of started with, I tried to get some answers from our current state senator about where he stood on a variety of issues, particularly question 3 in 2018, which was the transgender ballot question, you might remember. And I just couldn't get them. They just would not tell me what his opinions were. And that just really wasn't okay with me. And then, in March of 2019, our state senator, Walter Timolty, was literally the only Democrat who voted to keep Trump's cuts to Planned Parenthood and sexual health services, family planning, all that stuff in place. So that type of values and how he represented his office were not okay with me. Mm-hmm. And I thought I could bring a better vision to the district and a more progressive, more active senator. And so we decided to, give it our all.
Right. And it's really important to have these kind of different conversations. He did win the state senate race. And do you think a lot of people were aware with some of the issues that were happening in the communities and voiced their concerns to you?
Yeah, well, so we had a really interesting thing happen on election day. We far exceeded our vote goal total, mm-hmm. right? And that's the amount of votes that we thought that we needed to win. But because of the pandemic and mm-hmm. because of early voting and vote by mail being so much expanded, we just had a huge amount of people who regularly never vote come out and vote. And for the most part, what we saw is, and this wasn't just my district or my race, I think 2020 saw a historic number of primary challengers.
Yeah.
And every single one of them across the state, except for one, was defeated by the mm-hmm. incumbent. So what I think we saw was that we got all the votes that we tried to get. There were just a ton of extra people that we didn't plan on voting and didn't know would be voters. Mm-hmm. And as a challenger, you have limited resources, you have limited time and capacity. So you have to pick your battles. And, it's nice to say, well, there were indications that voting might be triple the amount of regular amount. Mm-hmm. And that's nice to say, but no campaign has the resources in the last week or two to suddenly talk to 3 times the amount of people that they were otherwise normally talking to, right?
Right, yeah.
So I think we did as well as we possibly could, given the circumstances that mm-hmm. kind of broadly affected all of the campaigns at once.
Yeah, you did pretty well. Again, like every first candidate, they didn't get it the first time because a lot of people didn't have time because of COVID. We didn't have the opportunity to knock on doors so people can really get to know you on a personal level and even understand what are the issues that you're fighting for, and why are you so adamant to be fighting for them? What were some of the issues that you wanted to really fight for and you wanted to get the community's attention? I know you had how many towns did you have to win votes, get votes
10.
from? 10. So that's a lot of towns. So, you know, COVID really, you know, held you back from getting to 10 towns. But what are some of the issues that you were bringing, that you wanted to fight for each of those towns?
Yeah, so the things that I was really focused on was climate change, really fighting climate change and adapting our communities, transportation and housing, kind of police justice reform, which I think, you know, literally today with the announcement from Breonna Taylor's lack of justice, if you will, it shows you why it's so important. And also, you know, our state senator is extremely pro-life, anti-choice. And we have a bill here in Massachusetts called the Roe Act that people have been trying to pass that have been getting continuously blocked privately by anti-choice pro-life Democrats. Mind you, Democrats, not Republicans. And, you know, people, lots of people told me, oh, you know, that's not going to happen in Massachusetts. Like, we're not going to lose all these rights. Like, well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died like 3 weeks after the primary.
So then that's another hit.
Right, exactly. And so it shows you more than anything the necessity to plan for some of these things happening, right? That we know, you know, she was an 87-year-old woman. We know that she wasn't going to be around forever, and and that these rights on the federal level are really at risk.
Yes.
So protecting them at the state level is even more important than ever, right? And you know, like what we've seen with like Breonna Taylor, you know, I'm not an expert in Kentucky law by any means, but in many cases, the problem that the district attorneys, the attorney generals have is that the police are following the law. And the problem is the law, right? Like, like the attorney general is only deciding if the cops follow the law or not. But if the law itself is unjust, then you need to focus on who is making the law. Right. And that's something that we really haven't seen a focus on writ large, right? Where we hopefully in Massachusetts, we can pass the police reform bill that is currently being held up by, again, conservative Democrats in the legislature, because they passed both chambers in the Senate and the House in July, and it's September, 2 months later, and still hasn't actually passed because it's sitting in a final committee.
Yeah. And say that you did win this state Senate seat, what would you be looking to do right when you get in? I mean, I think it's important for people to know. I know you're fighting for all the issues that are impacting our communities. What would be some of the things that you think would be first and foremost, one of the things that you would want to target to let people know, I hear you, and this is why I'm going forward on this?
Well, so I think some of the first things that need to be done is kind of like long-term COVID recovery things, right? To make sure that we have a recovery that really doesn't leave anyone behind. And that is simply, you know, not the case right now. And some of that's, you know, not on the state government, it's not really on the federal government, but we also have the ability to, here in Mass, you know, we're one of the richest states per capita. We have a pretty low comparatively tax burden. And I know everyone likes to say Massachusetts, but you look it up, certainly not Massachusetts anymore. And we have a whole bunch of rich people who are disproportionately not taxed. And I bring that up because one of the key things to figure out is how you are going to fund these services, right? So I think looking at those things is kind of priority number one for the legislature. And some of the other things is more long-term, super necessary, but long-term.
And speaking of COVID, I know that your wife at the time was pregnant. How did COVID-19 affected you as far as campaigning and reaching out to people? The only reason why I asked is I did see your incumbent around. He was in all, functions, anything that's happening in the community, and he was very active, which is a good thing. But for fairness for you, what would you like people to know? This is what impacted me in my campaign. It's nothing personal, but you have a family that you need to protect. And, this is something serious that can potentially take your life away from you. So I wanted, for us to have that conversation.
Right. So for most of the COVID portion of my campaign, my wife was pregnant.
Right.
And, that essentially means that all of us are at high risk.
Yes.
So, I would love to go to some of these events. And I was going to these events before COVID, but at some point that I just couldn't go. Right. So I could sometimes send somebody my place. Most of the time though, even that was, not advisable. And there's nothing that really beats the candidate being there. So I tried to turn it into a digital opportunity, saying trying to work with some of the organizers or the people who had attended and tagging them on Facebook or what have you, so that I could tell people that I supported this or I wanted to be there, but I couldn't be there.
Right.
And there's so many things that stack up against you when you run for office. And just in ways that people really don't think about until they suddenly happen to you. Yes. So if you have a situation where you or a family member are immunocompromised in some way, then there's just another huge hit to your campaign. And during the campaign in June, I got really sick. Everyone, including myself, thought I had COVID, and I was in the COVID ward at the hospital for 6 days. Wow. But they eventually figured out that I didn't, and I had meningitis, which was a relief, I guess, compared to having COVID. But we've still seen, another hit after another hit on the campaign, right? Just kind of caused by this disease. And then, it really hurt, and not just for me, but for all candidates, it really hurt fundraising. Campaigns, run on fundraising. It's a really expensive operation to do. And if you don't have the personal funds to back it up, which I don't, I am not a wealthy person, I do not come from wealth, then you have to rely on people fundraising, and during a pandemic, that just wasn't happening. Yeah. So, we raised money, but we didn't raise it at the level that we needed to.
Well, what I can say is, even if you don't come from a family of money, you do have the passion to fight for your community and bring awareness to issues that are impacting us. And I can honestly say, as I said before to other candidates that I've spoken to, this year has opened up a lot of people's eyes as far as to think outside the box and to see what some of the things that are happening around us and how we can make it better. And second, your health was in jeopardy. You had to protect your wife. So that is another, that's another issue that you not only you have to protect you, but you have to protect your wife, and you have to protect all the other members that are working with you in your campaign. And you have a baby that is going to come into this world. You have to actually seclude yourself from the entire world just to protect people around you, which is also a form of advocacy, how important it is to fight for issues in our healthcare system when things like this happen. And you had your own experience during your campaign, for one, and two, during COVID-19. And what are some of the things that you've learned about yourself that you have not learned before because of this pandemic and because of the experience during your campaign?
Well, I think that one of the largest takeaways from me is trying to kind of get into a mental headspace of like perseverance and understanding that like a lot of things can be temporary setbacks, right? And you know, I've been a real big fan of like Ruth Bader Ginsburg for a long time. I've had a pin that's in the shape of one of her collars for about 5 years, and I have some socks with her face on them. and one of the things that like I really take from her has been that, you know, she was a tiny Jewish woman, liberal on a conservative court made up mostly of Christian men, right? And yet what she did was she was able to use her influence to really kind of create a culture that promoted a lot of her ideas.
Right.
And a lot of her dissents went on to become better laws in the future. So I kind of look at it as like, yes, you can lose the battle, and heck, you might lose the war, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't make progress, and that somebody else isn't going to come and try to take up that fight for you.
And you had a lot of, I would say you had, compared to some candidates, you had a lot of endorsements, and they believed in what you were saying. They believed in the direction that you wanted to go. So that's within itself is an accomplishment, because I saw that you had, like every other week, I saw you having an endorsement. I was like, wow, that is very impressive.
Yeah, thank you. We got a lot of people on board between statewide groups and local groups, and then just a ton of volunteers from all of them. So we were really able to, I think we definitely had a winning message. We just didn't have the resources to get that message to enough people.
Well, I think you did a fantastic job as far as your campaign and how vocal you were, and people definitely noticed, especially right now. What message would you like to send to the young people in all our communities and the communities that you were representing about the importance of voting and the importance of being active, especially during this election?
So I've been involved in politics in one way, shape, or form, mostly in volunteer capacities since I was like 15, right? And the way I kind of look at it is that by being voting American citizens, each of us have a little nugget of power that is given to us. And then it's on us to either grow that or shrink that. By not voting, you shrink it down so that less and less people care about the things that you want. And that by voting, you grow it. And then by getting more involved, say in a campaign or a volunteer, you grow it even more. By running for office, you grow it even more, and so on. So that more people and the more people in the government care about the things that you care about. And the reality is that each of us are unique and have different perspectives. But the millennial generation in particular is the largest generation that's ever been born. And it is horribly underrepresented in pretty much every form of government. And it's also them and the Z's behind them are the first ones that were really born with inundated technology, right? And we've seen a huge lack of government intervention in these types of things. And so you kind of have to be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
And push people to do the things that you need to do. So voting is not about one candidate or one moment of trying to get something done. It's about building power for the things that you believe in, right? Sometimes you're going to get a setback and sometimes you're going to get a major victory, but it's about continuing to build that power base and that wall, whatever, you know, whatever metaphor you want. And you know, it's a really critical first step, and in many cases you can really get more involved from there, in campaigns and local advocacy groups, and then from there you can really see your influence grow.
Yeah,
and we need more young people with influence.
Absolutely. I think some of the things that people encounter when running for office or running for against an incumbent, you hear that, well, this guy's a nice guy. This is why I'm voting for him. He's been here for a long time. I know his family, but that's fine. That's okay. But look outside the box. There are a lot of things that are happening in our country. Did you know what A, B, and C is? Do you know the importance of this? Do you even know what happens at the State House? Do you know what a state senator does? And did you know about these last bills that came into place? And I find that a lot of people really don't know, but they just vote because they either know you for a long time or they know that you're a nice person. And being a nice person is great, but it doesn't give you the freedom that everybody needs. And I think we constantly need to have a conversation and educate people the power of voting and the power of making a change, because what will happen is it will cause the chaos that we're seeing right now in our country, because there is no accountability, there is no transparency. And even though you came up short, but I learned, and so many other people learned about you and the voice that you were bringing into your district, which is great. And I feel like a lot of young people now are very active and they want to participate in what's going on and whatever's coming in the future. So that's good.
You know, I think one of the most disturbing things that we've seen recently is that a lot of people have just gotten very cynical, right? And, you know, I have family members who are like this, who they play, you know, the both parties game where, oh, you know, the Democrats do this, the Republicans do this, blah, blah, blah. And in reality, in many cases, it's just an excuse for them not to care, right? But the people that ultimately are getting hurt is usually them. Because if you're not paying attention, and you know, Elizabeth Warren has this saying, which is that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And that has been a perfect example, especially for young people, right? You know, like back in my parents' day, my mom went to what is now UMass Dartmouth, but was at the time South Coast College or something like that. And you know, her tuition, everything was dramatically cheaper than it is today because the government had huge subsidies on it, right? And young people got less and less involved and had less and less power, and the universities went on the chopping block, right? Things need to get cut, they got cut, and then they never got restored. And we've seen that with education, we've seen that with healthcare, we've seen that with, you know, especially if you're a gay or lesbian person, you know, a lot of your healthcare services and stuff like that. So voting is, you know, it's a form of self-protection. It's a form of using your own power to really push the issues that you believe in. And again, you might not win, right? But that doesn't mean that what you did won't have consequences in the future. And it doesn't mean you can't win in the future. And it doesn't mean that somebody else who believes what you believe won't win either, right? If you want a good example of that on a national level, look at Bernie Sanders, right? That man single-handedly pushed the entire Democratic Party dramatically to the left from where it was in 2012. So, you know, it's important.
It is very important. And while you're telling me this, I remember I went to Stop and Shop and I was in a line and, you know, I was just having a conversation with someone and, you know, an African-American woman. And I was like, are you ready to vote this year? Not even worrying about anything else, just the presidential election. And she was like, oh, I don't vote. I'm not into that. And when I tell you that broke my heart to still hear people are talking that way, it's really sad because people honestly think that their voice it is not being heard. They feel that, you know, things are not changing, so why? But I encourage every one of our listeners and those who are watching on Facebook is to go out and vote, because your vote matters, your voice matters, your generation matters. Everything you do matters, regardless of the color of your skin, the gender, your sexual orientation, all those matter. We matter and we have to vote. And it's important.
You know, I grew up in Acushnet, which is right next to New Bedford on the South Coast, right? And that whole area has a huge Portuguese population, right? And Portugal and Spain, up until, you know, not that long ago, were under extreme dictatorships. So the older community in those areas who immigrated when they were young do not vote because they 100% don't trust the government, because that's just kind of how they grew up. And it's sad, right? Because the ultimate thing that happens is, you know, a government official is just like anyone else. They're just a regular human. And people care about the things that they hear about. And if they're not hearing about you, they definitely are hearing about somebody else, right? Because I worked in the state house. That a state senator's office door is being opened like every 5 seconds by somebody trying to come in and get them to do something. And if you're not one of those people, somebody else who disagrees with you is one of those people. And it's not always nefarious, right? Like, if you know, here in like Randolph, for example, is having a lot of educational problems with their school systems. Well, if the folks in Randolph aren't advocating for their schools, the folks in Brookline are.
Right.
And who's getting more money because of it? The folks in Brookline. Exactly. You know, it's a pretty, people listen to who they hear.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why, you know, young people like yourself are making a noise so people can hear, because that's what we need to do to get people's attention. Even if you came up short for your race, however, you do have something to fall back on, which is real estate. And tell us a little bit about your real estate, how you got involved, and the importance of helping families to become homeowners. And I know that one of your platforms were for housing, and the importance of helping people to you know, get housing, but not making sure there's a cap on the rent, and being able to provide a person a place to stay. But needless to say, you're in the real estate business and the pleasure of helping families to become homeowners.
Yeah, and I actually just came today from a closing where we helped a first-time homeowner family buy. You know, I like I said, I used to work in the State House. I left there and joined my family's real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, you know, myself and my parents for a while, and then we grew it together to, we now have something like 27 agents working with us. A whole new office and continuing to grow. The key thing about it is for those who are thinking about potentially buying or selling in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that owning property just in reality tends to be one of the best financial, most securing things you can do for your finances in the future. It's a lot less scary and a lot less expensive in many cases than people think it is.
Okay.
There's a whole wide range of like housing policy issues too that we can get into, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
things that those tend to be more about how homes and communities are built.
Right.
But on an individual level, like right now, how interest rates have never been lower. We've seen, you know, just a huge growth in people who want to purchase. First-time home buyers are really, really big right now. And, you know, it's really nice to help people do stuff like that.
And I would say that it's also too, to find people to actually trust you to help them get the home that they need, and the experiences that you have. And it's just the sort of connection that you bring to not only to people in your community, but from all over walks of life that are looking to get a home, or who's looking to be an owner of a property to start something generational and to pass it down to their family. So that is something that is honorable. And, you know, I wish you much success in your family business, and to continue to impact people to buying first-time homes, or to buying properties, and to just making a stamp and a mark into their life, because that is an accomplishment to be able to buy a home and start a family and be able to be within a community to grow and make impact change.
Yeah, and you know, communities are built by the people who live there. Mm-hmm. So one of the first steps is that you have to live there, and you know, just kind of looping back into the politics thing. You know, when I was in college, we had this great state rep who kind of was a personal mentor. And one of my friends asked her once, like, what do you have to do to run for office? And she said, well, first you have to live somewhere. Mm-hmm. And you have to know your community. And, you know, my generation in particular has been so transient in many cases that has been a really hard thing, where they're moving a lot, they move through districts a lot, sometimes through states a lot. But we can try to help people find the right kind of perfect niche for them, based on the things that are important to them. You know, sometimes that's just about the house in terms of, you know, I need 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a back porch, that type of thing. Sometimes it's about the community, you know, and what type of place they're looking for. So it's a fun job.
Well, Jared, I want to say thank you for coming on Voice of Reason Boston, for talking to me and giving us some information about how it was campaigning during COVID. You know what? I'm very proud of you, and I'm very proud of your campaign. You did a wonderful job. Don't stop fighting. Don't stop advocating. You know, the young people in the next generation needs you. And, you know, what can't kill you only makes you stronger. And congratulations again to being a father. And I'm not sure what's going to happen in the near future, but I hope to see you again.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
and yeah, it was really great working with you, Tamisha, and I enjoyed watching and helping with your campaign as well. And thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you for tuning into Voice of Reason.
All right, have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Every time you stay home, someone is making a decision about you, making decisions about the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food your kids eat, and how much money you bring home every 2 weeks. So every time you sit out an election, every time you don't show up because you think it doesn't matter, someone else is happy that you didn't show up so they can make that decision for you. Vote.